Hello, and thank you for coming to my presentation on back to school anxiety. We're going to talk a little bit about warning signs, what anxiety is, parenting tips, and when to seek counseling. So anxiety, very interestingly, is oftentimes what people think it is in that first pie cube up top there, feelings of nervousness, worrying. But what anxiety actually is articulated there. It can be a variety of things, many pieces of the puzzle. Trouble concentrating, trouble sleeping, intrusive thoughts, uncontrollable feelings and worries, increased irritability, restlessness, a feeling of being on edge, avoidance of feared situations, loss of appetite, feelings of guilt, and also physiological symptoms. This year we're faced with some unique challenges. Back to school, not quite. So I wanted to just acknowledge there's a variety of challenges out there. We don't exactly know from day to day what will happen and when school will physically resume again, or what this year is looking like, or that may be taking shape for some of you now that we're in August. There may be safety concerns upon return to physical school. Alternative school considerations might be on the table. Long-term implications of missed time, I know, is on a lot of parents' mind. We know that lower socioeconomic status children and teenagers are disproportionately at risk for falling behind. Also, less parent support or single parent households as well have stronger considerations for being at risk or falling behind. Now might be a great time to consider additional tutoring or educational support. We have funding being impacted by enrollment in public schools, less staff, and less teachers upon return. So at this point, we're wondering about reduction of school counseling support as well. And anytime we have unknowns, this is a driver of anxiety. Of course, distance learning comes with its complications. We've got to battle technology, privacy, space, time, internet bandwidth, all the things. Parents have new challenges with work life and childcare. Ability to learn can be strongly impacted depending on your child's learning style. And of course, there's concerns about falling behind, lack of social time, lack of emotional support and mentors. Being at school with teachers, coaches, and staff is definitely great for mental health and mental wellness. And then we have a lot of grief of loss of school events, activities, and sports. Why do we get anxious? And all of us have the ability to be anxious. So we carry this innately from our ancestral genes when we were big feet, when we were cavemen and women in the cave protecting ourselves from wild animals. So we all need anxiety. It's a protective factor in a way. It's a nice reframe on it too. So whether we're returning to a school building as we aren't here in California just yet, online learning or hybrid school environments and what those will look like, it's totally normal for children and adolescents to have some stress or anxiety about going back to school this year and really every year. This year in particular brings the fears of getting sick, school safety protocols for COVID, heightened tensions around racism that might make the transition even more difficult. And in a recent survey of school-aged kids conducted by Nationwide Children's, 2 out of 5 parents said they actually have concerns about their child's social and emotional well-being as they head back to school. So that's over 40%. And so we're looking at a much wider variety of mental health problems and a much wider variety of parental concern about that. 44% of kids report having trouble sleeping around the end of summer and the start of fall, which is a clear indicator to us in mental health that upcoming change in routine might be starting to bother them. So we got a lot going on. We are going to talk about next parenting. Up next, tips for parents. So here are 12 tips for parents as we go back to school. One of the things that we can do to increase emotional support is to think about the communication. So admitting to your child, right now there's a lot of unknowns, but you're here to support them. Remind them of other adults in their life who are also here to help them and who they can talk to. Remind them of those supports. Discussion of possible scenarios or fears with children. So again, increasing the communication and kind of keeping it real, as well as talking through different options and alternatives. We want to increase children's flexibility, their thinking, and their problem-solving skills. So asking them what they're nervous about doesn't necessarily increase their anxious thinking as long as we then focus on solutions, problem solvings, and coping skills. What we also want you to do is model appropriate coping skills for children, showing kids how to respond to future unknowns and building resilience. For example, a great thing to do might be to reach out to your own support system about your anxieties and use this as an example for your child of how you sought help, how they can do the same, and how much better you felt afterwards. We always say you can't take a child further than you've come yourself. So don't be afraid to role model some positive coping skills as well. We also, especially for younger kids, we want to demystify some of the procedures and precautions that may be in place when they do return to school or that may be out there in the world. And by now, most kids have been to a grocery store, they've seen some masks. We might even have them practice that at home by wearing a mask while they're reading. The more familiar, the more normalized it can be, and the more a child is going to just accept that this is the way it is. So make sure they're also kind of compliant with having their temperature taken and understand what an external thermometer is, as we do anticipate once school goes back in, those procedures will be in place, and we want that to be something comfortable and familiar to them. We also want to reach out and see what resources are available. Even though things are limited right now, activities, sports, clubs, schools are incorporating a little bit more social emotional programming. Teacher office hours, peer support, peer tutoring may be available through your school. If you are concerned about learning disorders or delays, this might be a good time to do some psychoeducational testing with a licensed psychologist, or engage in school counseling. So although their hours might be reduced and be more virtual, that's still going to be a resource in most of our schools. And then consider professional tutoring if more support's needed. Consider outside counseling as well. Letting kids know to express their worries physically. So this is a skill we might teach them as part of a therapeutic process, but this is certainly something you can do as a family at home now. So you might try an activity to express how they're feeling. So one thing that's pretty easy, you grab a stack of Post-it notes and create a place in your house which we call the worry wall, where kids write down what's worrying them on sticky notes, stick them up on the wall. Can be a way to physically get it out of their head and put it somewhere else. If you want to take that one step further, you can also write counter ideas or solutions on the back of the Post-it note. So if they forget what to do with that worry, they can flip it over and see some ideas. Sometimes we do this as a worry box as well, where once they put it in the box, then they kind of aren't allowed to think about it until until they have time to worry again, and then they can pull the box out. So we're helping them kind of contain the worry to certain times when they have time to think about it or express it. And so tip number 7 is about complaints about not wanting to go to school or having difficulty with their work. If you have a younger child, this might show up as separation anxiety, first and foremost, where your child has trouble separating or gets quite emotional or dramatic upon leaving or when you drop them off at school. And this may look a little different with distance learning. This may be when you go to turn the computer on or when school is starting. They might get extra clingy, whiny, tearful, and they're clearly having some emotional dysregulation at the thought of going to school. So separation anxiety, we might do some transitional objects. We might do a special goodbye for mom and dad. As they get older, though, it tends to be rooted in more of a problem. Is it a t-shirt issue? Is there a bully that's heckling them in the Zoom chat or in person? Are they overscheduled? Maybe they feel they're unable to meet expectations they're held to, or the distance learning for a lot of kids does seem a lot more difficult than showing up and being in person in school. So what we want to do is try to address these problems through communication at home. And then if things really aren't addressed or something doesn't seem safe about the school environment, of course, we would reach out to the school administrators. Get the kids to bed. Kids need way more sleep than people realize. And while children in kindergarten up to 3rd grade may require up to 12 hours of sleep, even high schoolers still need a solid 8 hours, according to the National Sleep Foundation. So this is more than likely a little bit more sleep. Well, actually, we see teenagers kind of go into hibernation over the summer where they'll sleep for 10, 12 hours at a time and wake up and still be tired, right? So when school starts, when they have to get up at a time, they tend to go through a little bit of sleep deprivation, which does not help anxiety and it does not help the transition back to school. So we will want to address any factors that might be resulting in sleep loss. Managing demanding schedules, feeling anxious, using technology, or staying up on social media all night are common reasons why kids are not getting enough sleep. Another great idea is to plan ahead for the week. So parents can prevent conflict from arising during the week by creating a visual schedule on a whiteboard to keep the whole family informed of where everyone's going, what's going on, where they need to be, what their schedules are. This can prevent a lot of arguing, a lot of back and forth, a lot of, Mom, what about this? What about that? When there's a place where families can go to check and see what day is it, what's going on, a lot of times that's very grounding. You could use technology for this, and there's families that share Google Calendars and that type of thing. But having a physical space in your home, especially if you're spending more time there, might be more advantageous than having it virtually. So maybe consider going old school on getting the schedule posted. And that's something your kids can participate in. You can have them, give them their own dry erase marker, have them do their own schedules, give everyone a different color, or take turns putting the schedule up and everyone kind of participates. So it's not just more work for mom and dad, it's a family activity as well. Another thing you want to do is get in touch with teachers if things get out of hand. So one of the things I would always encourage teens that I have in therapy is to create really good relationships with your teachers. Teachers, for the most part, are good-hearted people that want to see their students succeed. And if they know that a student is really trying, they're more likely to round up than down, and they're more likely to give that extra credit and that support. We know it's also a stressful time for teachers, so we're, I think, not blaming or finger pointing, but just really engaging the teacher with gratitude, thanking them for what they're up to, and then letting them know if there's a problem like excessive homework time that might be affecting sleep, mood, or health. Sometimes it's worth touching base. Teachers don't always know how long it's taking to complete certain assignments. So that feedback from you and other families might actually be super helpful. So don't be afraid to reach out to the teacher and encourage your child to have an open communication and a positive relationship with their teacher as well. Another idea, so that it's not mean old mom and dad, or I've heard a lot of parents saying, I don't want to be a teacher, I'm not qualified to be a teacher. Create some type of homework contract. So making sure, your responsibility as a parent is to make sure they have the time and space to do the work, but we really shouldn't have you in the role as a tutor. That's bound to lead to frustration on both parts. So a homework contract should outline, when they can do their work and ensure that it gets done, but leaves the grading to the teachers. And if they need you to, have the kids pull up. And if you need to, this might include, so to create that homework time, taking their phones, logging out of social media until they finished what they need to do. And last but not least, I put the kiddo playing with the blocks, because when we're very young, we just do it naturally. We play as much as possible, and we still need to play. We need to have downtime. We need to connect with nature, connect with the family. So use your visual schedule for physical fit downtime, family time, self-care in the routine. Otherwise, all you'll see on that board is work, and it'll just be go, go, go all the time, which also can contribute to more stress. So add downtime, sleep and transition periods, family time, such as family dinner. Well, technology can be part of play downtime and family time. The idea is that these are moments when the family is not plugged in. Face-to-face moments that will help kids decompress, build their confidence, reconnect them with themselves and nature and all the good things. Clinical anxiety, so when it's a problem. So as promised, there's a lot of normalized anxiety right now. I think many people are going through it. So how do you know if your child is one who actually is clinically diagnosable, which Used to be about 15% of kids, and it's risen to about 30%, and I anticipate it'll be even higher. So that means in a classroom of 30 kids, probably 10 can benefit from additional clinical support. Um, so once the initial transition, so here's some things to kind of think about. Once the initial transition has passed, 2 weeks of transition back to school is completed, and anxiety symptoms are actually getting worse, not better. That's a very big flag for us. So mostly when kids get comfortable and used to a routine, we see anxiety decrease. Symptoms that might be unusual for your child: low grades, refusal to go to school, refusal to get work done. These can also be flags. Separation, so increased anxiety when leaving, or even increased anxiety when leaving the house. So if being home is now familiar, sometimes leaving can be unfamiliar. Social anxiety, it'll be really interesting to see how social lives change post-COVID, but some kids are experiencing low or no desire to connect with peers, or loss of relationships as a result of not connecting for some period of time. And that's highly unusual for teenagers. They're packs. They need to be with their friends. So that is concerning if they've lost touch with their peer relationships. And then there's also something called generalized anxiety, which is feelings of worry constantly with no known trigger. Also, you can have specific worries or fears impacting sleep or other areas of function. A common one here might be arachnophobia, where spiders, instead of just being annoying, they're absolutely terrifying and they leave you screaming and running out of the room. That would be a higher anxiety level than just seeing a spider and putting it outside or getting rid of it. So supportive counseling, what is it? What can we do? Here's a picture of our group room in one of our locations. For kids and teens, I always recommend finding a youth specialist instead of just a generalized adult counselor. A youth specialist is going to be trained in different stages of development, what is normal for each stage, what is more concerning, and then able to adapt and have skills around connecting with teenagers, which can actually be really difficult sometimes. Some of the therapeutic relationship benefits for children and teens are listed here: positive coping skills, reducing anxious thoughts, reframing problems to solutions, examining thoughts which may be contributing to the mood problem, resiliency skills, building self-awareness, self-esteem, assertiveness skills, and many, many more, depending on what your child's needs are. I've always had a passion for working with youth. I strongly believe that if we get in and do good clinical work, we change the quality of their life and their relationships for the rest of their life. So by improving these skills, we're changing the trajectory. Here's our picture of our website. You can find lots of information about our team here. It tells you, yes, we are open, and we are called Grow Through Life Counseling. We have 4 locations throughout San Diego, 33 specialists. And there's our intake number and our website. We are also able to treat all throughout California. Our licenses are the state of California, so the client does have to physically be located here. But that's a great option if you're in a rural area or you're having trouble finding a youth specialist and you're somewhere else in California. We can still now serve those kids and teenagers as well. So this is one of the quotes that obviously would influence me naming my practice. Don't just go through life, grow through life. Thank you so much for your time and attention here today. And